This race was a proper home race for the current world champion. It had a struggling 7-time world champion and a new set of regulations on a special track. All wonderful ingredients for this month's funny race review. I think most of you have guessed the race by now from the thumbnail, but for the ones that didn't, I'm Wimbo. Here's 3 seconds to leave a like on the 2022 Zandvoort Funny Race Review. Roll intro. 2021 was the first time in decades that the F1 circus landed in the Netherlands again, thanks to Max Verstappen and his popularity. Here are the highlights of that race. Vettel spun, Max asked on the radio if Hamilton was moaning about something yet, Bottas was naughty and set 2 fast sectors before letting go of the 3rd sector so Hamilton could get the fastest lap. And those were the 3 highlights of the 2021 Zandvoort Grand Prix. You can see why I picked 2022 for a funny race review. 2022 was the first year with the postponed ground effect regulations. In this season, Ferrari started great. Red Bull had a few DNFs, but were soon the quickest cars out there. And Mercedes were hopeless thanks to them not understanding the ground effects regs properly and trying a no side pod philosophy that clearly didn't work for them. The title fight was between Leclerc and Verstappen, but Verstappen turned a massive deficit into a big lead, and a mid-season directive to help out with the porpoising phenomenon hampered Ferrari so much the fight was gone out of this promising season. So on Sunday, in the lovely coastal town of Zandvoort, the cars lined up on the grid. Verstappen and Leclerc were on the front row, Sainz and Hamilton 2nd row, Perez and Russell 3rd row. A special mention for a very scruffy looking Vettel in last place and a sad looking Ricciardo at McLaren. Vettel retired after that season, and maybe Ricciardo should have done as well. This will cost me subscribers. Max Verstappen had an amazing start and pulled out a decent gap. Lewis Hamilton had a bad start and was in a little scrap with Carlos Sainz, which resulted in Hamilton putting the wheel in and making contact with Sainz. One lesson I've learned over the years is never to be on the outside of Hamilton. His car always seems to drift out a wee bit. In any case, this kind of contact would have caused outrage if Max Verstappen had done it. But since it was Lewis, it was only a little bit naughty.
Could have been really naughty on the first lap for Lewis Hamilton for the 2nd race running, but he got away with it.
In lap 2, K-Mag did a bit of rallying, something he could be doing next year full time as his days in F1 are numbered. A little while later, we had a lovely battle between 2 legendary F1 drivers. Kevin Magnussen in his Haas and Nicholas Latifi in his Williams were making life hard for each other on track. Then the pit stop started. And when I say pit stop, this always means drama for Ferrari. I made 5 funny race reviews and it's a reoccurring theme. Check the playlist for more. First we see Perez driving over the wheel gun that was left in a weird place by the Ferrari crew. Then we see a 12-second pit stop for Sainz, to which he reacted with the iconic "Oh my god." In 2022 we had German heartthrob Mick Schumacher getting beaten by K-Mag in the Haas team. He was a heartthrob for all the young girls who support Norris now. In this particular case we see him fighting his mentor and family friend Sebastian Vettel. No damage this time. In laps 18 and 19, Leclerc and Verstappen pit because they started on the soft compound where Hamilton and Russell started on mediums. Verstappen set after the Mercedes duo and managed to overtake Russell in a very classy way. The Orange Army erupted, although they cheered like that in FP1, 2 and 3 as well. They're nuts. That's why I'm going as well. My wife and I will be there for all 3 days. Keep an eye out for my vlog. Unfortunately, before we had one of those juicy Hamilton-Verstappen fights, the Mercedes pit wall decided to pit Hamilton and Verstappen was leading again. Hamilton on fresher tires was behind Perez, and those battles are usually pretty feisty too. On this occasion, Hamilton tried it around the outside and it was Perez who visibly locked up and almost ran into Hamilton. But they came through alright, no harm, no foul. Eventually Hamilton made the overtake stick, but Sebastian Vettel, who had just pitted, was in their way. That cost Hamilton a good bit of time, which benefited Verstappen of course. Russell also passed Perez, who was driving at the pace we've grown accustomed to in recent years. So now we have a situation where Verstappen is in the lead on tyres that are getting older with each lap, and a pit stop would put him behind Hamilton. It's hard to say what the outcome would have been without the event that took place at that time, something that caused big drama on social media. In lap 44, Yuki Tsunoda, driving for Red Bull's sister team, AlphaTauri, had an issue and he stopped on the side of the track. He thought a wheel wasn't secured right. This is where Sky Sports F1's Ted Kravitz, who was rooting hard for Hamilton, as always, thought there was something fishy going on. Tsunoda was told to keep going, and in the pit they tightened his seatbelt again and sent him out again.
I know we're near the North Sea, Crofty, but this is fishy.
Tsunoda continued, but then came to a halt that caused a VSC to come in, and this allowed Verstappen to pit and come out in front of the Mercedes drivers. This caused outrage on Twitter, and we also saw some footage of Hannah Smith, Red Bull's strategy leader, laughing on the pit wall. Now, with the FIA coming out saying they want a less toxic environment, I think they shouldn't look at people on social media complaining about decisions that stewards make. They should point their arrows at reporters that make up these stories and wind up this already toxic fan base. In the following days, the abuse Tsunoda, Smith and Red Bull received was so severe, even the Team LH page on social media distanced themselves from it and asked people to stop. This led to even more toxic comments and they removed the posts. Tifosi better be prepared for what's coming next season. Even Team LH can't control the cult members in Team LH. Anyway, back to the race. Mercedes double stacked their cars neatly and they continued with the race. Until Valtteri Bottas in his Alfa Romeo stops on track, causing a yellow flag and later a safety car. The Red Bull strategy team decided to hand over track position to both Mercedes drivers and put Verstappen on softs. Now, this is a lot easier to do with more than 5 laps to go. But track position in Zandvoort is very important too. It took a few laps to get the Alfa Romeo off the track, and Russell, that smart little cunt, asked to be pitted at the last moment, saying he wouldn't get the tires heated up. And the pit wall allowed it. So it was Hamilton in the lead and Verstappen behind him on the softer, faster tires. Sounds familiar. Hamilton knew what was coming when he said this on the radio.
It'll be hard to keep that car behind me guys now.
Then there was the restart and it was quite obvious that Hamilton went too early. It gave Verstappen a tow, which he used to the max. He was clever enough to hold back a tiny bit before passing the starting line, as it's not allowed to overtake before that point. Verstappen steamed past him like Hamilton was standing still. Happy Dutchies again. On lap 64, Russell and his sneaky fresher tyres also overtook Hamilton, after almost crashing into the back of him. This is the moment where Sir Lewis Hamilton completely flipped out over the radio.
I can't believe you guys me, man. I can't tell you right now.
Now normally I don't give a flying fuck about swearing and cussing. I could totally understand his frustration. He thought Russell would buffer for him so he could win. But George Russell had his own strategy, and rightly so. It's just that Hamilton always pretends to be better than anyone and has come out in the media about swearing in the car. It was bad for the kids that might be listening. Recently, after Verstappen went mental over the radio in Hungary, Hamilton said Verstappen should behave more like a world champion. But we just heard what a 7-time world champion says when things don't go his way. So with all due respect, shut the fuck up, Lewis. And then Leclerc passed him too. After this major event, we see a scrap between Sainz and Perez, where Perez is a little ambitious and gets pushed off the track. Max Verstappen won this eventful race by the North Sea. He went on to win again a year later, but I'm not so sure if he will win this season. Russell finished P2 and was called a bad teammate and not a team player after this race. Leclerc finished 3rd after being pretty invisible all race. But a podium is a podium. Hamilton finished P4. But enough about him. And Perez scored a decent P5. I say decent because he usually finishes P8 or something. This concludes the funny race review for this month. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button for more. Take care now. Doei doei.